So I wanted to thank everybody here for coming here tonight. Um, this is a workshop on parenting and self-care and how it relates to how it's backed up kind of by from a social work perspective and a psychological perspective. Um, I have dedicated my life to parenting and what that really means as far as the best ways to do that for our kids. And of course, there's a million resources out there that tell you what to do as far as parenting is concerned. And I'm just here to tell you what my experience is, and from a social work perspective and a single mother of two's perspective. So if I can introduce myself, my name is Erica Hubbard. I'm a licensed social worker and registered psychotherapist. I have a private practice, and I practice here in Westminster, and I have a Boulder office as well. I'm also a single mother of two, and I am also a good enough parent, just like y'all all are, and I'll explain what that means in my presentation. To switch slides, my kids are Rainy and Stella, and Rainy is 7 and Stella is 4. I'm going to tell you a little bit first about why I dedicated my life to parenting and why you should even be listening to me in any way at all. So, how did I get here? 4 years ago, my kids and I experienced a trauma altogether. As I was getting divorced, we had to leave Louisiana and we moved up to Colorado, and we moved up here in a Honda Civic with trash bags in our car full of clothes, and that's it. And we lost kind of everything at once due to a sudden divorce and a sudden loss of everything. And so all three of us were really traumatized, even though Stella was only 6 months at the time. She definitely felt a residual effect from it, because my brain, due to trauma and what PTSD kind of does to your brain, is it puts you in a place that you are feeling like there is danger everywhere. You don't know what's safe, what's not, and your brain really does some really funny things to you. So what happened to me, which is very common, is that I got very they call it shock. And so basically I couldn't really think very clearly, which is really detrimental when you are moving to a new state with a 6-month-old and a 3-year-old. And I couldn't connect with them emotionally. I couldn't connect with myself emotionally. There was really just this numbness that went on, and that is a typical thing due to trauma. However, the real me was in my brain watching that. And so it was really devastating, because I didn't know how to get myself back into my body, and so that I could be there emotionally for my kids. And it was just a very hard time. I didn't really cry or have any emotional ups and downs. It was just all about survival. And so when we got here, I found a place to live, and you can analyze this very much, but one of the main things that I wanted when I got here were curtains. And anyone who knows me knows of my curtain rod moment, and it really changed my life. So it was about 2 months after we moved here that we found a place, and I was emotionally like dead, and I was physically depleted. There was no such thing as self-care. There was no self at the time, but I had snags on my nails that I just couldn't get around to filing my nails. I definitely would surprise myself when I passed myself in the mirror, because I just did not have any self-care in any sort of way. It was all about food on the table. Like, I was breastfeeding. I was trying to get curtains and a couch and a crib and all these things that are necessary for survival. And so that was really just all I could think about. And I didn't let myself go to, or didn't know how to let myself go to that place emotionally to feel what was actually going on, because my survival was not secure at that time. And I went to go get curtains with a baby and a 3-year-old. We went to Target and we got like 10 curtains, and we came home to our new place, and all I wanted to do was make sure that my life was hidden from the outside world. And again, like, you can analyze all of that, but I had not nourished my body. I had no food. I was losing weight at a rapid speed. I wasn't drinking enough water. I was breastfeeding too, so that was super dehydration. And I couldn't even file my nails. So their self-care just did not exist in any sort of way. So I was putting up curtain rods after getting home from Target and putting the kids in the bath and then to sleep. So it was probably 10 p.m. when I started. So the physical exhaustion, I can't even describe to you. It felt like I was disintegrating inside, but it was just keep going, and no rest. And so I put up about 3 curtains in the living room first, which I shouldn't have done, because the most important one for me was the one in my bedroom, which is a huge curtain, and it requires 3 like holders for the rod. And unfortunately, in Louisiana, in the South, there's such gender roles that I wasn't really taught how to use any power tools or how to grill a steak, or, I mean, I'm sure I could take up trash, but I just hadn't. And as a woman, I was really mad at the time at Louisiana for not preparing me for these kinds of things. But when I went to Target and bought the curtain rods, I also bought this little pink drill, which we have gone through a lot together. But the pink drill and I put up 3 curtain rods, and at that point, by the time I got to the one in the bedroom, my arm was shaking so violently that my other arm had to hold it, and I was just out of strength in any way. And I got to the middle holder of the curtain rod, and I didn't know about this at the time either, but there is that metal strip that goes around a windowsill, but behind the wall, you can't see it. So I didn't know the thing existed. So I put the curtain rod a little too low, and I went to screw in that middle screw, and the screw got stuck and it stripped, and it was stuck into that metal piece. And then my little drill was just too weak. My arm was so weak I could barely even hold it up to hold the drill up, and so the drill couldn't even reverse or anything because the screw was completely stripped. Anyway, needless to say, the curtain rod just kind of fell and tumbled over, and the rod fell down onto the ground and made a really loud crash. And then it was like midnight, and I just heard Stella start crying upstairs in the bed. So it had woken her up, and that was it. That was my breaking point. And so as the curtain rod fell and I heard Stella start crying, for the first time in 2 months after such a traumatic incident, I collapsed onto the ground and I just sobbed, and I sobbed and I sobbed and I sobbed, and my face was red and snot was coming out of my nose, and I cried until I couldn't cry anymore, and my voice was hoarse and I had no more tears. I think I was literally out of water at that point, completely in my body. But for the first time in 2 months, I had allowed myself to feel emotion, heavy emotion, and I was on the ground just defeated. And I think I was screaming, I can't. And after I couldn't really talk anymore, or cry anymore, I kind of sat up a little bit and I looked around and I thought, nobody's coming to help. This is me. I have to, this is it. I'm the only person here, and I have to do this. And so I sat up and I said, where's that damn drill? And where are the directions? Because this has to finish. This has to happen. So I did end up figuring out the curtain that night. And just very depletedly, I just got into bed and probably slept 3 hours that night. But the next day when I woke up and I addressed my kids, Stella had stopped crying. She was fine. But the next day when I woke up, it was that permission that I had given myself, or the, involuntary collapse, that I realized that I had a sliver of connection back with my kids that I had not had, and I wanted back so bad for months. And I saw that correlation with allowing myself to feel emotions and to lose it. And what that did for my emotional well-being and the connection that I had with my kids. I ended up filing my nails the next day, and because I was taking care of myself more, I drank a ton of water the next day because I was so thirsty. I had just run out of water, and I felt so much better. And so I just started to realize this correlation very, very slowly, starting from a 0 point, that there was a really strong correlation with me allowing myself to feel emotions and to lose it, and to and how good that felt to allow that to happen. And self-care, starting with filing my nails, starting with just at least acknowledging that I exist, and helping myself exist in a more appropriate way, how that helped my kids laugh a little, and like and it was really based on the fact that I was laughing with them a little. And so that was just the beginning of a healing process that has gone so far since then. And I have dedicated my life to this cause because of how much I've learned over the past, since that moment of me sitting up on the ground right there, and to where I'm at today. So my idea is, what if the key to parenting it doesn't barely even have anything to do with the kids? What if the key to your kids' success and happiness is your own success and happiness? And I wanted to go over a theory in psychology, and it's called the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And what this is it's a triangle that has the largest side. I mean, the bottom is the largest piece, and that's it builds upon itself. And so if your physiological needs are not being met, your brain has no choice but to only be able to think about that, which in hindsight, of course, makes a lot of sense, because in the shock time of my life, when I knew I couldn't think of anything, and I couldn't connect with my kids, it now clearly makes sense, right? I mean, I was depleted of food, I was depleted of water, and my body was not able to think of anything else besides that physiological need. And safety would be the next thing. So security, safety. So I was somewhere in between the physiological and the safety bottom two layers of a triangle, and therefore I could not possibly go to the next step in the triangle because those two needs were not being met. And as soon as I started to cater to my own physiological needs and safety needs, that the second I started doing that, the love and belonging hierarchy of needs could possibly be addressed. I couldn't address that until I paid attention to my own physiological and safety needs. And then, you can go up into the self-actualization. That's when you can't be making goals on your life, and what does this all really mean, and what am I doing here? And you can't think those thoughts until all of those bottom layers are fulfilled. And so that being a traumatic story and makes sense according to those hierarchy of needs. Now on the other side of trauma and healing, I've realized that you can play with this triangle. You can use it to your own advantage. And so a lot of your really strong emotions versus the no emotions I was feeling because those needs weren't being met on the bottom of the triangle, that when you are in a love and belonging place in that triangle, that's where your emotions are. And so that's where really strong negative emotions come from too. So when you're really, really, really pissed off and you're about to lose it, or you do lose it to your kids and tell them, to get the hell out of here. I told you a million times, put your damn shoes on. Those times that's minimal compared to some of the negative thoughts that can happen in life. You can be getting a divorce. You can be really, really pissed at your spouse. You can feel isolated and lonely and sad. You can be going through depression. You can be having anxiety attacks. Um, those are really, really strong emotions, and with that correlate with negative thoughts. And sometimes if you don't have the coping mechanisms, or you're not good at it, or you just let it go too far, it's hard to de-escalate from those high emotions. And so I'm going to tell you a life hack, self-care trick to kind of force your body and mind into calming down. And so you can use this by kind of tricking your body into thinking that it's in those bottom two layers of the triangle, making it impossible to think about the love and belonging parts, which is only going to work for a few minutes. But it really, really helps to reset your brain in a way so that you can come back to that environment and be a little calmer, because you had a 5-minute reset in your brain from the spiraling that goes on that can make us really damage our relationships, not sleep, not eat, that kind of stuff, because we know how it gets when emotions get too strong to even handle. So a way to do that is to trick your skin into thinking that it is in another environment where your brain has to pay attention to it. So such as taking a hot bath. When you're in a bath, the level of the water, your brain needs to pay attention to where the level of the water is, even though a bath may seem really relaxing. And it is. And it's because your brain switches to, okay, where's the water level? Where's my head? Where's my breathing? And you're not paying attention to that consciously. So you're not really thinking, I'm about to die. But your brain is thinking, just in case, I'm going to be really vigilant and pay attention to this, which deactivates parts of your brain that are really, really stressed out and really upset and having negative emotions. So taking a hot bath is good for that reset if you need to, tricking your brain. Also, going outside when it's snowing, or changing your environment completely. So just going outside doesn't have to be snowing, can help. Taking a walk around the block and getting out of your house for a minute, changing that environment, will reset your brain, at least minimally. And if anything, minimally is something that you'll take if you're in that escalated place in your brain and you need a second. The good news is that's actually not for adults. That's also for infants, colicky babies that are crying, toddlers having tantrums, teens having teenage tantrums. Go take a walk before we talk. You need to walk around the block or go outside for 5 minutes and take a break. Telling your teen to do that is going to help them de-escalate. Teens are angry sometimes. Teens are pissy sometimes. It will help their brains reset, even though they think maybe that you're just saying, get outside for a second, whatever. When they come back in, they're going to feel a little more balanced and a little more aware of like actually what's going on, versus thinking, I'm so pissed at everybody and everything, starting fights. So it is helpful in a lot of ways to use this triangle. So the good enough parent. What is not a good enough parent? We'll talk about that first, because good enough sounds like an opinion. Oh, that's good enough. No, this is an actual psychological theory that versus other types of parenting, children use the types of parenting that they have as what their attachments are going to be like in relationships forever. And so there are so many problems that come with helicopter parenting, which results in, I don't know how to do anything for myself because no one ever allowed me to try something for myself because of that helicopter parenting. Emotionally uninvolved parents is a rejection that is just too heavy for children and carries on in so many negative ways later in life. Drill sergeant parents really scare the crap out of kids, and so you will have adults that will be really meek and scared, and if somebody's mad at them, they'll be over caring and way no self-care. If you want your kids to never have self-care, be drill sergeant. Intermittent parents are confusing because sometimes they're helicopter parents and sometimes they're emotionally uninvolved, and so that just results in never really trusting if anything's real, always chasing this dragon of love, but then like when it comes to them, they're not comfortable with it. There's childlike parents, which makes kids just grow up too quick and never really get to be children, and that comes with its own thing. So there's a good enough parent, which belongs on this list of types of parents, and that ends up being the most, the children that result from good enough parents result in having the most stable attachment levels and are more resilient when things go wrong, better at problem solving, better at adulting, basically, and have those healthy boundaries with people in their lives. And it's been proven in many studies, and I'm here to share why you are already that, most likely, considering that you are here tonight. And that's amazing. So what good enough is that, I mean, the minimal of good enough attentiveness that you need to have with your kids in order to be good enough is only 30%, which is, that seems like neglect-ish, right? But it's not. If you think about all the things that we're doing in our lives, if we want to self-care and file our nails and brush our hair and feed ourselves and drink some water and work and maybe get on the phone or email somebody or go grocery shopping or do all the things that we do, 30% is a lot to give to kids, and it's enough. And what it does is the big key with good enough parenting is narrating yourself. So you're narrating, I can't talk to you right now because I'm on the phone. I need 5 minutes. Having a timer is really great for that. So if they're too young to know what 5 minutes is. What that level of rejection does to a kid is it says, ouch, I want to talk to you now, but I guess I can't, ouch. And then what they learn from that is, I can live from that level of rejection. I'm resilient enough to handle that. And then they can entertain themselves for 5 minutes as well, which is also this problem-solving learning experience. That's just a phone call. So other ways that good enough parents, the way that you can be a good enough parent is that you can screw up. Meaning you can tell somebody to put in their shoes 50 times and then eventually scream and curse, put on your effing shoes. Did you hear me? Are you deaf? Yeah, that is shameful. And do not let your kids just sit with that. But it's okay when you lose it, because you can't pretend that you don't lose it sometimes, that you do make mistakes like that. What do you do when you make mistakes like that? Well, the best thing to do, and the good enough parent, what they would do, is they would say, I'm sorry, I should not have lost it. I got really upset. You know, sometimes I don't think that you hear me, and I talk all the time and tell you these things a million times, and you're not listening. I think that we need to come up with a way that I can say something without yelling and have you listen to me the first time. But either way, the way that I did handle it, it was not good, and I'm sorry, and I shouldn't have done that, and do you forgive me? And can we be friends again? And let's work this out so we can find a better way. What that just did was show them an adult that screws up, because when they're adults, they're going to screw up. What to do about it, acknowledging it, verbalizing it, apologizing for it, and then trying to learn and problem solve on how not to repeat that same mistake again. That kind of lesson, that verbalization of screwing up and talking about it and talking through it and problem solving with your kid, how can you help me and how can I help you? And then making that plan and kind of an agreement. And don't drill sergeant your way into having them meet that agreement every time. They're just kids. They're going to need a million times, just like the shoe scenario. But what you're teaching them is how to adult and relationship in a way that is going to make them happy in relationships. And relationships are all about what makes us happy. Relationships are everything to us. So to start developing skills in relationships with your kids by modeling that behavior with them, instead of keeping it together and never screwing up, or screwing up a lot, not verbalizing it, not apologizing, and then just guilting yourself because you shouldn't have done it, or you feel guilty, or you feel bad, or not. Either way, it's better for you to be yourself and screw up, as long as you verbalize and problem solve with them about it and go over that scenario with them every time it happens. You will soon learn that your kids get better at that, and so then they start being vigilant about apologizing or talking through it, and you'll hear them with their friends talking and saying, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that. What can we do different next time? And it's going to make you smile real big when you do, because that work that you're going to be doing with that good enough parenting style is going to pay off, and it's going to pay off really, really quickly, and you will see. I mean, almost immediately. But as far as the shoes are concerned, you're going to tell your kids to put on their shoes a lot of times. But just like a dog in Pavlov's theory, you need to have somebody's attention when you tell them something. So a good little life hack trick is to say, eyes. I look at my kids and I say, give me your eyes. And I don't know why it works so well, but they do. They both look at me. I'll say, eyes, and they'll both look at me, and I'll say, put on your shoes. And then I wait and watch, and I keep eye contact with them, and I see that little switch when they look at me and hear me, and they're like, yeah, okay, I heard you. And I can tell when they heard me. And then they start doing it. And that made me think, like, the millions of times I said, put on your shoes, and they weren't listening. Yeah, they weren't listening, but they didn't even hear me. And it's because if that eye contact isn't there, kids have that tunnel thought, tunnel vision, and whatever they're doing, when you can tell when you turn on a TV, it's like nothing else is going on in the room. That is how their brains work. And so if you're not having them look right at you in your eyes when you tell them commands and tell them to do things, it might not be that they're just bad listeners, or that they're disrespecting you, or that you're being completely ignored in life. They might not even be hearing you. So make sure that before you judge any sort of like insolence or non-compliance with your kids, that you make sure that they are looking at you when you're talking. Otherwise, it could really just be an innocent, not auditorily processing that. Let me check.